What insights are we seeing as we head into 2025? How can you position yourself and your firm for change and growth in 2025? And how are industry leaders harnessing the power of AI? You've heard the buzz. Well, welcome to the inaugural session of The Table, a space where we invite interior designers to join the conversation about what's happening in our industry. Today, I'm joined by the incredible LuAnn Nigara, who honestly doesn't need an introduction. She's a celebrated media personality, keynote speaker, and seasoned entrepreneur whose work has impacted so many in our industry. Next up, we have Rick Campos. Rick is a self-proclaimed recovering interior designer, podcast host, and design business coach. He's on a mission to support and elevate the interior design community, having held thousands of conversations with designers and industry experts about the business of design. Rick leverages these lessons and generous advice from his peers to inform and empower design entrepreneurs across the globe to build stronger, more profitable businesses. Last but certainly not least, we have our powerhouse, Dr. Jennifer Chukwujekwe. Dr. Jennifer brings a global perspective from Nigeria with her multifaceted expertise. As an interior designer, coach, and author, she's dedicated to helping professionals, entrepreneurs, and interior designers thrive in their spaces, their lives, and their businesses through design. Make sure and stick around until the end to hear about how I am using AI in our interior design firm. Let's get it started. Do you love interior design but can't make the business side work? You've come to the right place. Welcome to Success by Design, mastering the business of interior design. Whether you want to elevate in your current interior design firm, start your own firm, or move the needle when it comes to your existing firm's trajectory, this is your masterclass, and I'm your host, Katie Erickson. Learn from my mistakes as I built a coast-to-coast, multi-million-dollar interior design firm. I share nearly 20 years of serving as a university professor of undergraduate and graduate business courses with you. And best of all, I bring in experts in all things business and interior design. Class starts now. Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of The Table. And I will tell you, we have assembled the best and the brightest. And I'm so excited to have this conversation as we come into Q4. We wrap up this year. And I can't wait to hear, and I know you can't wait either, who and what everyone is thinking out here. How is the year ending? Has it turned out well? And of course, I'm going to rely on everybody to bring their crystal ball to the table, tell us what they're thinking for 2025. I can't believe we're already up to that, to say the least. So let's get started. The big conversation, insights from 2024. Lou, take it away. What stands out to you about this past year when it comes to the state of the union, as we should say, for the interior design business?
You know, the state of the union of 2024 is it's been a hard year. It's been an up and down year. It's like, hey, everything's going to be fine. And what the heck happened? The rug just got pulled under me, which is significantly different than it's been bad every month. It's been very volatile up and down. Mm-hmm. And beyond that, what we have found is that the businesses that are basically 1.5 or 2 million to say 10 million have experienced that volatility. It's like good month, good, bad, bad. Oh my God, we got a good month. The businesses up to about 1 million to 1.5 have been a little more consistent. But I also think because they're technically in growth mode, right? They're maybe not as mature a business. And so therefore the highs and lows aren't as noticeable because you're coming from a point where everything is kind of growth. So in a nutshell, yeah, it's been hard, folks. So if it feels like it's been hard for you, you're not the only one, is what I'm saying.
So true.
This is exactly why I wanted to have that conversation. Pull up a seat at the table, because if you're feeling alone, hashtag you're not alone at all. We're here for it. Rick, give us your perspective out there on the West Coast.
You know, I have a lot of conversations with designers through my coaching services, and I speak to designers at all different levels in the market. And, you know, I would say that 2024 has been a challenging year in the sense that designers are still busy. There's lots of opportunity. Designers are still doing great work. But I think there's this big question mark that's looming over everyone's head is, I'm doing all right now, but what's next year going to look like? It's really hard to look forward. It's really difficult to forecast right now because there's so many contributing factors. And so I think 2024 is just a very fuzzy year for design business owners. And you're not alone. I think everyone's feeling it in some capacity. And I don't really know what the answer is going to be. I don't know what is going to give us that clarity for next year. We're all waiting for that together.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be the election, and we're recording this pre-election, and this will air post-election.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's the election or not. There's so many other contributing factors.
Yeah. Jennifer, what are you seeing, bringing us this global perspective coming in from Africa? We're so excited to have you on the show. What are you seeing on your continent, which could be very different than North America?
Now I feel so happy.
Well, silver linings abound. Take it away, Jennifer.
Because I just thought it was just us. Yeah, I thought we were the only ones going through the down times and all that. It's amazing to know that it's happening all over. So it's not like peculiar to Africans or peculiar to Nigerians. So yeah, so I'm excited to let them know that it's not just you, right? It's happening to everyone. But honestly, it's been a tough year. I think for us, because of inflation and all that, for us, we import most of the things, right? So prices of things have gone up. The buying power has reduced. People want to DIY now. I don't know why. So,
especially for those of us that do it full time, who would do that for
fun? So it's getting frustrating, and you get people saying, "What exactly do you guys do?" And I can do it myself. So, but I'm sure it's just because things are expensive now. Inflation rate has gone up. We have a new government now, so it's just a lot of chaos. But this year, not just interior designers, but I think for our country, it's really been tough for businesses. So yeah, so I'm excited. I'm happy that it's global.
Well, and just to hear you use the word inflation on the other side of the world is so refreshing, because we have experienced that in the States in a very significant way. Oh, wow. We've experienced DIY's always been a thing, but then when you start adding inflation to it, that's something I want to kind of tease out. It becomes an even bigger thing, right? So how much of our businesses do we feel like we're losing, or how much of our business do you feel like we're losing to DIY, or that people are taking on and trying things that they wouldn't have, say, 2-3 years ago? Lu?
So I have to say, my neck of the woods with my experience up close and personal with Window Works, where it serves the luxury consumer, there's always going to be a sector of people that will go and DIY it. But when you are firmly entrenched in the luxury market, what I find is the difference isn't so much that your consumer is now going to do it themselves. It's more like your consumer who owns a mansion in Morris County and an apartment in New York City and a beach house at the Hamptons is only going to update the kitchen in one of those places instead of all of those places. And that's like a joke, but it's not a joke, right? Like there's times in, years when they're like, hey, I've got projects going on at all three. And you're like, I'm in my car. Let me keep coming. You know what I mean? But what I find is, to Jennifer's point with the inflation, we were in our partner meeting here the other morning, and Vin was just reading the Riot Act to everybody. And he literally said, our sales are up 5% over 24 to date to 23, but our operational expenses are up 29%. And he said, and that's things like raises on insurance, raises on gas, raises on things that we don't have control over. And so he said, guys, you can't make 5% more, but cost 30% more. You've got to make 30% more to be even. So that has been a big factor in the financial health of our businesses. And what I know is a lot of businesses don't track their expenses at that minutia level, where they can look at their team and say, our operational cost to be open is 29%. So they're going out every day. They're not selling as many projects. They're not making as much money, and they just have this fear of what's wrong. Now, because we have identified what's wrong, we haven't solved it, but at least we're not like, what's wrong? We're like, this is what's wrong. We have to try and mitigate it, right?
Well, and I think that's interesting, Lu, because it goes back to what Rick was saying about it's just been a fuzzy year. It's been a very fuzzy year. I was even talking to a realtor down in Phoenix a couple of weeks ago on what's going on in that market. Like, that's a fascinating market, right? Because they tend to lead the nation in many ways, just being so housing dependent. And she's like, I've just never seen a year like this. I don't know if we're going 08. I don't know if we're going 13. And I'm like, yeah, are we headed for a recession? Are we headed for imminent growth? Nobody knows. And so, Rick, how do you coach, and what truth can you speak to the designers who are listening to this today? about where do we go from here? I think that's the big question because it is hard to know. And I know that's a really hard question to answer. Let me just start out. I don't expect your crystal ball to magically appear, Rick, but kind of. Where do we go from here? And how do we position ourselves for success when Lou's talking about, hey, operating costs are up 30%, but revenues are up 5%. So we've got a fundamental math problem here.
Yeah, Katie, that is a big question. But the first word that came to mind as you were asking that question, and I wrote it down, was empathy. And so going back to the DIY really quickly, I think that DIY, I don't even really think it has a place in the conversation for professional interior designers. We have to constantly remind ourselves that we are a luxury commodity. We're working with luxury clients. And so, with that being said, is DIY so much of a threat, especially in Southern California? They're their own market. And we are our own market. But
well said.
The inflation is real and it does affect everyone. And so even if our customers are not saying that inflation is impacting them at the grocery store, because maybe that's completely irrelevant to them, it is impacting them in other ways. And when they're making decisions about how to spend their money, they're being very, very calculated about that. And sometimes we can't really relate to that or be as empathic as we could be because they have a lot more money than we do oftentimes. And so our decision-making process when it comes to investing our dollars is different, but it is important to understand the process that our high net worth clients are going through when they're making decisions about budgets for their redesign, about budgets for furnishings and window coverings, and even construction costs.
Right.
There's a whole strategy behind that I think designers need to kind of learn more about and embrace a little bit more so that when they're having these conversations with their clients, it doesn't seem so much like pushback, but strategy.
That's a very key differentiator. Just a follow-up question to that. What do you think is the number one way that you err on the side of that going well?
I think it's about communication. I think it's really about communicating with your clients and establishing that trust right out of the gate, because if you do your part and if you establish that trust and you begin to build that long-term relationship, which is what these projects are, you can have these conversations very gingerly, but you can have these conversations. And it's also about leveraging the other players on the team. Because in my case, working on so many new construction projects when I was designing, I learned that the client is having a slightly different conversation with me as a designer as they are with their construction company and maybe even their architect. So kind of leveraging those players in the game and understanding where the client's coming from could provide some insight on what's really going on.
I love that point because it doesn't matter how much money you have. People still need empathy. They still need to be understood. They still need to be seen as human. And we can provide that component that's invaluable, right? They're not just filling a line item on our budget. They actually are struggling themselves to figure out where they're going to put it. I love that point. Jennifer, speak truth into this situation from your perspective.
Okay, so I would say we've lost most of our jobs to DIYs. However, that's good.
Interesting.
Because what's happening is they try it, they mess it up, they call us back.
I know nothing of which you speak, Jennifer.
So that's fine. So most time, so that's fine. So you want a DIY, please go ahead and DIY. But I assure you would mess it up. And when you come back, you'll pay more. So I always tell them it's cheaper. It's cheaper to just hire us because the truth is, at the end of the day, we're there for something and we're there to offer a service, right? And you can't do it yourself. So I don't even know why we started DIYs in the first place, because I don't think everyone is talented or gifted or or that creative, right? I feel interior design is something that has to be passion, right? Not everyone can get it. So what happens is they go to the stores, they pick up all the things, put it together, and it's still not making sense. And they're wondering why. It won't make sense because you just don't know how to do it. So I think it's a plus. So yes, let them go back, do it themselves. Call me back, then I come back and I'll sort out your mess.
Yes. And we also sometimes at our firm add on what we affectionately call the PETA tax, but it's the pain in the tax. Because let's just say, you probably know those clients are going to be difficult and they're going to be up in every single part of it. And sometimes we don't even offer them the PETA tax. We just decline. And there is no shame in that game. I'm just saying. Sometimes it's easier to stop before you start. And that's okay too. That's really okay too. As each of you is thinking about 2025. I can't believe, like, I'm having a hard time even saying 2025. I'm like, are we really there? Yeah, we're really there, Katie. Like, I've got to get on board with that. What is the number one thing you're doing to position your firms, your businesses, your coaching? What are you doing to set yourself up? And I'm going to keep coming back to Rick's term of fuzzy. After a fuzzy 2024. Lu, what are you hoping to implement change? Obviously, like, we've got to deal with revenues versus operating costs for sure. And I think everybody's in that boat, and nobody likes to price hike clients. But the reality is we're not in this. As I always remind my coaching clients, we're for profit. And that's okay. As I always like to say, you're lovely and billable.
Yeah.
You can be both.
Exactly.
So where do you go in 2025 with that? Like, for WindowWorks, and what is Vinny thinking?
We're like, balls to the walls. Like, we're just like always like, no, we're not going down under on anything, right? It doesn't matter. All three businesses are actively in October digging deep and doing two things. Lead gen and operational expenses are getting looked at with a fine-tooth comb. And like we said to the team the other day, we're not out of money next week, but you don't want to be out of money in 6 months or a year. And that means you have to start now with the pedal to the floor on lead gen and the brake on expenses. And so a healthy business is always monitoring that and always doing that, push and pull. But right now in October 24, we are like literally consciously like doing all the things in all three businesses. There is absolutely no like, this has been hard. I wonder if it'll be better. It's like, okay, so this has been hard. We have to work harder. In not any of the three businesses are we taking for granted that anything that particularly happened or worked before. We have in WindowWorks, we have 42 years of data to show us the trends. And the truth is, the trend is that after 1 month, we're going to come into our 3 slowest months. So we not only can't say, hey, typically these months are going to be good, so we're sitting and resting. We absolutely know they're not the good months. And I would say Design Argue is the same thing. It's the same home industry. Like, once Thanksgiving comes, it's sort of like, all right, I'll see you in January. So we've got 4 weeks till Thanksgiving. That's how we're looking at it in all three businesses. Let's get this thing going. So it's take no prisoners time, truthfully.
I love that term. And it reminds me of that old Harvey Mackay networking book, Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty. By the time you're thirsty, that's not the time to start digging, folks. And if you're not getting your accounting, if you're not getting your reports every single week of where your business is at, you are not running a business is running you. And you will find yourself decorating and hanging curtains in your pit when you're broke, because that's just not how to run a business. And if that's alarming to you or abrasive or harsh, I don't intend for it to be. It's just real. I feel like it's just very real. Rick, what would you add?
Well, LuAnn stole my answer, so.
Sorry.
I'm kidding.
See, I told you I brought the brightest people to the table.
Everything that LuAnn said, plus.
Yeah.
I think when speaking to my coaching clients, and even when looking at my own business as well, going back to my word fuzzy, I know that 24 has been a fuzzy year and there's a lot of question marks, but I always encourage my clients, and I have to practice what I preach, and not get bogged down with what's happening right now in the moment. Just kind of embrace what's happening in the moment. It's a cycle. It's a natural part of business. My advice, to designers is to really look at what's working right now. Double down on whatever projects are profitable right now, this moment.
I love that.
Whatever's working for you and making your money, double down on that to cover your behind, and then open your mind to expansion and growth for 2025. Because I think what happens is that during a time like this, when there's all these question marks and there's all this gray area, that, design business owners and entrepreneurs in general, they get a little nervous and they're focused on what's happening now and they're not projecting into the future. And you always have to be looking forward. So don't let this moment cloud what's happening, the potential that is the future.
I totally would agree with that. It's interesting being in the commercial world, because to LuAnn's point, if we only have like 4 weeks left until we're at the end of the year, we always sit back at the end of the year. I'm like, put on your seatbelt, because all of the deals happen at the end of the year. We got to get the tax benefit. So I'm like, Well, we're all going to have a great Christmas, but buckle up because I'm going to be calling you on the 26th probably. But it's interesting. Even last year, we saw that didn't happen to the magnitude because of interest rates being where they're at. So we've got a 0.5 point cut, right? We're coming into November. The Fed's going to meet again. The leaked documents are showing it could be anywhere from 1/4 to another half. So that's going to be interesting to watch. But it's just on the commercial side, it's about what's going to pencil, what's not going to pencil. And so I wish I could have the Fed chairman in my hip pocket. Who doesn't, right? Is that not the most ostentatious thing to say? But really, it's just going to come down to what makes the numbers work. Jennifer, what are you planning for in 2025, having that, view from another continent?
Guess what I'm going to do in 2025? Work-life balance.
I love that.
I'm overwhelmed. It's a lot going on, and I'm asking myself, like, what the hell do you think you're doing? So I don't think I'm the superwoman after all. So I think for me next year, we're going to take you one at a time. We're going to slow down a bit and focus on what really brings in the money. Then the other aspect, the ones that don't bring in so much money, we can decide to collaborate with people, or like the factory, for example, that's giving me a headache. So I'm looking for people to collaborate and see how we can make it happen. Yeah. So I think for me next year is more work-life balance, because I noticed also that my employees are also overwhelmed. I think it's a reflection of me. So we're just going on and going and going and going. But also, I also believe it's not possible to have a work-life balance, but I'll explain. I think you can juggle it, but I don't think it would ever be balanced. I don't think so.
Never. I always like to say it's like a rabid squirrel straddling a barbed wire fence. Like it just never looks pretty. It's never quite right. It's never perfectly in balance. You just sit there and you twitch a little and you flop to this side a little bit and you flop to that side. It's never perfect. I mean, let's be honest. If somebody's figured that out, please let me know.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is you can juggle it, or maybe we'll start thinking of how to sync it. So maybe, so it'll be work-life syncing.
I like that term a lot better. I feel like that's way more pragmatic.
I like that too. I like that sync.
Yeah.
The sync for me is more like, so take for example, if you want to balance your work, maybe your spiritual life, family and all that, right? So I've started looking at things like, okay, take morning walks. I'm a Christian. I like to pray. So while you're walking, do your prayers, right? So I don't have to work first before I pray. So while I'm working, I'm multitasking, but I'm syncing.
Yeah. I'm like, I feel like sync is the 2.0 version of multitasking for Jennifer. Like multitasking has such a bad rap and your brain can't do whatever. But when you call it syncing, epiphany, new word.
Yeah, new word. Or I'm listening to a podcast and I'm walking.
Just saying. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you can listen to a podcast and walk, but you can't read a book and walk. Yeah.
No, there's Audible for that.
Yeah. Audible. Yeah.
You can just put Lou in your pocket and then you just segue over to Rick's podcast. We just cycle through everybody and get the what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of 2025, let's talk about AI, because the latest conversation I had with Gail, who love and adore, she said 75% of designers are not using AI in their business, which floored me because I'm officially hooked on AI. I've told our team, if you're typing more than 2 lines of email and you're not putting it in ChatGPT, then you're wasting my time and money of the company. Like, what are we doing out here? Like, just dump your concept and let it make it pretty. But I want to hear your thoughts on that. How are you using it and how do you see it changing 2025 for you? And I'm going to go around the horn the other way this time and start with Rick, because I would love to hear, Rick, what do you see and what are you hearing from the designers you're coaching about what they're embracing, and also with the clients, because now we have clients getting on board with this sometimes faster than designers and saying like, well, look what I created. Well, that's great, but like that isn't actually structurally possible, right? So how do we navigate that channel? Where do we go with that?
Well, it's interesting that you bring the client into the conversation, because the reality is oftentimes our clients are utilizing that tool as well and wondering why we aren't, or wondering how we are utilizing AI in our business. So it's a very real question that we're asking each other as entrepreneurs and within the design community, as well as a question that we're fielding with clients, outside of design. I will say that the more designers are learning about how AI can help them with their business process, not the creative. So even I initially was like, oh my gosh, I don't like the sound of this at all. It sounds like, there's going to be a lot of copyright infringement and IP infringement and all of these other things, which can happen. And it is happening. But as soon as I began to listen to the conversations and realize there are so many ways that you can incorporate it into the back end of your business, everything from crunching numbers to developing copy and all of those things, yes, it generates imagery. And yes, it does a pretty good job at it. But as far as I'm concerned, it is a tool for conceptual only. And if you utilize it correctly, it will remain that. Now, everything has the potential of going rogue, and that's not something that we can control. But I think that 75% number is going to change very quickly because there's a lot of people coming out of the woodwork having these conversations with designers about how it can be used properly for your business as a tool for efficiency and productivity. I think that number is going to change really quickly. Like by the next time we're talking, that number will have reduced. I'm sure of it.
I like to say it's like a gateway drug because once you start, you cannot stop. I mean, it's really bad. Like even my husband's like, it does what? And I sat him down and he's like, okay, can you send me what that just created? Because I need that for work. And I'm like,
But I think the important thing to remember is it's a tool. It's not a solution. It's a tool. That's how I see it anyway. And I think once you shift your perspective a little bit, it's easier to embrace.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. You think there's still a fear factor? Is that what you think is reading into that 75%?
Totally. And I'm part of that 75%, by the way. There are a lot of ways that I could be using it in my business. I mean, we're on a Riverside platform right now that has AI plugged into it. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the screen, it's already generating, it's capturing images of us. It's putting it into a template. It's ready for social media. Do I use any of that? No, I do not. Should I? Yes. And I probably will be, but right now I'm still in learning mode.
Listen, I think I didn't know that ChatGPT was a minute old. I literally think I started using it the first week by coincidence because I am a huge early adopter. I'm like, wait, what's that over there? Oh, I'll try that. Let's go. What is that? Right. And I was like, this is awesome. This is crazy pants. And, 5 hours later, my ADHD brain, I was like, oh, it's okay. There's other things to do today. I was like all the way down in it. Right. The thing about it is that the more you learn about it, and I'm not talking about for imagery. I'm not an interior designer. You all know that. But I do not think, first of all, let me just say it again. I have not used AI for imagery. Have not. Okay. But I am a writer. I am an author. I use AI for my writing. So don't tell me that this is not my intellectual property because I asked for 3 points to blow up this point of view that I have. I still have to then put my point of view on those 3 points. And I got to believe, whether it's Jenna Gadusic or whoever else in our industry is leading the charge on this, that is teaching designers how to use it from an image and conceptual place like Rick is talking about, right? We were just at IDS conference, right, Rick?
Mm-hmm.
I sat in Jenna Gadusic's presentation on AI. As she's talking, I'm now buying the AIs that she's talking about with my computer in real time. Now, I had been using ChatGPT since the week it came out, but I had never paid for the pro version.
Oh,
and I'm going to tell
game
you
changer.
What happened. She described special GPT. So when you talk about, Rick, okay, maybe somebody is a purist and they don't want to use AI for conceptual, for anything design related, then I would say take every architectural digest out of your house. I would say never go to a museum again. I would say never go to a showroom again because, hey, if every idea has to be yours, sweetie, then stay home in your black room and come up with all the ideas. Because, by the way,
turn off Pinterest.
I thought I was harsh. Okay. I love this honesty.
All I'm saying is get perspective. It's inspiration. It's concept. It's not stealing, right? So anyway, the thing is that when she told us about special GPT, so when you talk about using it from your business standpoint, I believe designers, their superpower is design. They should live in the design space. You want to do it from 0 to 100, every step. Do you, girl? Do you, guy? I don't care. You want to take a little help, whatever. But on the business side, creating blog posts so that you can have them put through as an SEO. And now instead of having a blog once every 100 years, when you get around to doing it, you can do one once a month because you tell AI, I have these 4 points of view on XYZ. And here's what Jenna taught me about the special GBT that makes me crazy, and it's so exciting. In ChatGPT, you can, in the paid version, create a special GBT, it's called, and then they're called my GBTs. So I have a GBT that is called The Making of a Well-Designed Business. What does this GPT do? This GBT helps me generate content solely from my book. That is the purpose of this GBT. What do I want to upload? Oh, let me upload my book and let me upload my brand description of my voice and tone and my point of view. Those 2 documents are in there. Now I come over and I go, please search for my book for a concept that I discussed on a designer charging their value and the risks when they don't. Oh, there it is. Boom. Because you know what I used to do is to pull my own darn book out.
Looking for pull quotes and all the tabs.
Exactly. Like I wrote it 7 years ago. I'm like, well, what did I say about charging your value anyway? So now the thing tells me what it is. And then I go, hey, that's awesome. Using just this document, my book and my brand voice, create a solo episode based on this concept. Boom. Now what happens? I take it, I put it in a Google Doc, and I LuAnn it just a little bit more. But I'm going to tell you what, the LuAnning in the special GBT, when they're pulling from just my book versus the regular non-paid GBT,
Night and day.
Oh, for sure.
it's like my first draft. And so to waste your time, like that's like when they invented calculators. Oh, I shouldn't use a calculator. I should get my pencil out and I should do 16,000 calculations because it's not really my math if that machine did it for me.
I love your honesty, LuAnn. I am here for every single part of this.
This is spot on. And I think it takes away that fear quotient when you say, look at how efficient and productive and what you can accomplish. Just go hug the porcupine if you're scared of it. Seriously, hug the porcupine, get over it, try it.
Well, and not to cut you off, but by the way, don't you put my book into your GBT.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm going to be cool with that, right? We're talking about I am using my own books.
It's an 80-20 principle. You're still going to have to do 20% editing, tweaking, or LuAnning, as you put it. But 80% of it is there, especially if you're plagiarizing yourself. It's not plagiarization. Get after it. Like nothing is wrong with doing that.
Right.
You're leveraging your own content.
There you go.
Yes, that's what it is. You're just doing it faster, right? And here's the other thing, the Perplexity AI. What I like about this particular AI versus ChatGPT, and my partner, Steve Wishnow at EW, told us about this a couple of months ago. Jenna also mentioned it at IDS, is that when you just ask the Perplexity something, it will cite you the sources. Right. So I was creating a presentation for Vinny for the Sun Shading Expo. And I was like, well, what is the global market look like in 2025 for exterior product market? Because that's what they wanted to be. And so I asked ChatGPT and it gave me all this information. I was like, well, how do I know if that's right? So then I asked Perplexity and it cites the things. And now, just like if I looked it up in the old Funkin' Wagnalls, I know who said it. And I can trust the source, or I can say, well, that's a dumb source. I'm not going to use that statistic. My brain is still engaged. I'm not just like, okay, on auto drive, now I'm a robot and I just do what the robots say.
Yeah, so dead on. You hit on a really key point in there. It's not about having you do the work for you. It's about asking the better question. And our SEO guy said this to me, and he's like, probably 6 months ago. And he's like, it's not that it is going to give you all the answers. It's about how good of a question you ask.
Yeah.
And so it's changing instead of in Google where less is more, right? The more you give chat, the more you give these AI tools, the better questions you ask, the better answers you're going to get. And that is astounding. Yeah. Are you using this, Jennifer? How do you see AI?
So ChatGPT has been my best friend since it came out. Yeah, so it's brilliant, as in it helped me to fire my HR. So recently I just fired my HR because I was wondering, we're hiring people and it's not making sense, right? So I just went to ChatGPT and I said, I'm overwhelmed. I need to fire my HR. I need to know interview questions and selection processes for interviews and stuff like that. And it was brilliant. It gave me 3 stages of interviews to do. It gave me case studies for the interviews for the applicants. It gave me test questions.
So there were 3 different stages, right? And honestly, by the time we did the case study and made them do the presentation and they did the interview test, we were able to select the best. So it's not the normal, just come for an interview, we'll ask you 1 or 2 questions. No, it's intense. And it was brilliant, right? And I just saw my staff, we were like, oh, you're doing an amazing job. How did you do it? I just couldn't tell them it was ChatGPT.
Well, but you know what, Jennifer? 20 years ago, at least in the U.S., if that was something that was on my plate as a business owner and I was concerned enough about it, I would have walked into the Barnes & Noble and said, a book on the best practices for hiring and firing.
Yes.
And then 30 years ago, I would have walked into the library for it. So what? Because I didn't leave my house and scroll a bookshelf, it doesn't count? Come on.
It's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah. But ChatGPT is honestly brilliant. Yeah.
Well, it is. And there's so many different ways that I think we're just beginning. Whenever we have the AI conversation, I always hear the little AOL dial up in the back of my head because I feel like that's where we're at with AI.
Right.
We don't even fully understand that you've got mail, like Meg Ryan. Like if you're old enough to get that context right, like we're here for that right now of what it's going to be for chat, and to watch that evolution and watch that happen is going to be simply breathtaking. I mean, we're talking about processes, and oh my gosh, the processes that can be done with AI are insane. Like if you don't like creating processes, go look at Scribe. Oh my gosh, just let it watch your processes. If you don't have a process library in your firm that you're allowing AI to watch what you do, that you can go create it, you're missing out, man. You are double paying because you're paying for your onboarding person every single time to re-explain this to someone else when you really just need to put them in front of a machine and say, here's the library. Go to it. I'll see you back in 5 hours. Is it going to be the best 5 hours of your life? Absolutely not. But I'm not going to pay double for it and write down your questions. We'll spend 1 hour.
No, I just want to put the pin on my like crazy rant is I'm literally standing by the things I said. I'm not like, well, what if somebody cheats and what if somebody copies and what if somebody like, you know what? If you're not a person with integrity, then we have bigger problems than AI. That's all I'm saying.
This is using it for good. Yes, Rick.
And to go back to, you know, my original statement about what designers are learning about it and the information that's being shared, LuAnn and Katie, you both just clarified that by having this conversation about what you're putting into it impacts what you get out of it. The more we have that conversation, the more receptive I think designers are going to be to explore AI. That's what they're learning right now in this moment, even on this podcast, is, oh, it's not about completely about what I get out of it. It has a lot to do with what I put into it. And that clarification, I think, is going to have a real big impact on how design business owners leverage AI in their business.
And if the only thing that someone chooses to use it for is the ways it can assist you in the business operations and not in design all day long. Brilliant. Save 5 hours a week and put it towards designing from scratch. I've never used it for images. Like that's your lane, you guys. You know what I'm saying?
But you don't need to have it be extremely successful. I'm going to give Jennifer the last word before we wrap it up. Jennifer?
AI is your friend. AI is not here to take away your job. It's here to assist you. So the minute you understand that, then life is easy. And you don't have to have 50 staff. With AI, you can have a very small team and achieve very great results. Yes. So AI is your friend.
I love it. Y'all, this is why I wanted everyone to grab a cup of coffee, pull up a seat at the table, and share what's going on. We're going to be back talking about this Q1 of 2025. It's going to be fun to see where we're at. Election done. Where are interest rates? What are businesses looking like? What are the metrics? And know that you're not alone in the struggle. We're here for the conversation. Thank you all for being honest and fair and vulnerable and real. I couldn't have asked for a better conversation. And by the way, happy birthday, Lou.
Happy birthday, LuAnn.
Yay! Happy birthday, Lou.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing it with us. We so appreciate it.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for sticking around for the Coaching Corner. And there was a lot of conversation, and I believe it was a really good one. But if you're sitting here and you're beginning to think about 2025 and what it has in store for you and feeling a bit overwhelmed, I just want to tell you you're not alone. I would say for the first 5 years of owning my firm, I was barely thinking about what needed to be done that day, that week, even the month, let alone the next year. That certainly wasn't on the radar. However, what I have learned after nearly 20 years of running a business is that you cannot steer a parked car. You've got to figure out where you're going. And while the market will change and economics will change and different factors will come into play, at least you are setting your sights on a specific direction, and that is invaluable. Are you not sure how to do that? I want to invite you to our premium channel where we are going to have an exclusive strategy session, just as if you were in a strategy session with me one-on-one to talk about how do we actually do that while still allowing for life to happen. Make sure and click the link in the show notes to be invited to this premium channel and get this exclusive content. And that's the closing bell. I hope you've gathered valuable insight from our conversation today, equipping you to thrive in your interior design business. Don't forget to hit that follow button to never miss an episode. And if you have burning questions or specific topics you're curious about, explore our episode library, or better yet, book a strategy session directly with me at colorworks.coach. Until next time, see you in the studio. It's our virtual community, and the link is below.